in the aftermath of the U.S. Supreme Court's terrible decision that essentially gave the green light for Texas to gerrymander its districts to favor Republicans, giving Republicans 5 more seats in Congress, which, by the way, were counteracted by California. Well, now all eyes shift to Florida because Governor DeSantis, who wants to run for president again, is promising another 5 seats for the Republicans. But something strange is happening on the way to the gerrymander. It looks like there's some real pushback in Florida by his fellow Republicans. Let's discuss. I'm Dave Aronberg, former state attorney for Palm Beach County, a.k.a. the Florida Law Man, here on the MeidasTouch Network. Thank you for all your support. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't done so already. And so here I am in Florida, although I'm on the road. I'm in Ocala today, beautiful part of Florida. And I am about to surprise people by saying that the red state of Florida, with an overwhelmingly Republican legislature and a Republican governor who wants to be president, who butted heads with Donald Trump because Trump made him, Trump endorsed him, plucked him out of obscurity, and then DeSantis ran against Trump. And the two of them have been sideways ever since. Yes, I know they have made up in public, and Trump is supposedly good with DeSantis now. No. For example, in Florida, DeSantis is trying to prevent Trump's pick to be the next governor from getting elected. DeSantis is doing his best to try to prevent the person Trump wants to be governor, again, Congressman Byron Donalds, from being elected governor of Florida to be a successor. And there's all these different proxy battles going on in Florida between Trump's people and DeSantis' people. But DeSantis wants to run for president, and he wants to curry favor with Trump and the MAGA base and to show that he's a loyal soldier. So he's going to single-handedly, supposedly, make the Republicans win the midterms by gerrymandering the seats, giving Republicans 5 more seats. Now, already the Republicans have a 20-8 advantage in Florida. Although we're red, we're not that red. But the seats are already so gerrymandered because of DeSantis' orders. Now he wants the Republican legislature to go back and make it even worse, to get 5 more seats. So it'll be 25-3. And yet the Supreme Court will sit back and do nothing. This is just an abomination. The gerrymandering, as I've said before, is just so undemocratic, so un-American. I know it's been done by both sides, but I don't recall it being done in the middle of a decade where you go out of your way to admit to everyone, yeah, we're doing it in the middle of the decade, not when we're supposed to do it, but we're doing it for pure political advantage. That's gross. But be careful about putting those 5 seats in the Republican column so soon, because DeSantis, although he is telling the legislature he wants it, he is now saying it won't happen until the spring because he wants the Supreme Court to come out with its ruling that will gut the Voting Rights Act so that he'll have more freedom to create the 5 new seats. But here's the deal. The legislative leaders aren't in any rush to do it either, and they may not go along at all. See, in Florida, voters passed a constitutional amendment back in 2010 that said that you're not supposed to have political gerrymandering. So if you do it based on political reasons, not racial reasons, that could satisfy the U.S. Supreme Court, but it violates the state constitution. The amendments are in the state constitution. You can't do political gerrymandering. And if you do it racially, well, then you're going to possibly get overturned by the federal courts, which have said that you can't do it on a racial basis. That violates the Voting Rights Act. And that's why DeSantis is saying, let's wait until the Voting Rights Act gets gutted by the Supreme Court. If that does happen, people are expecting it to happen. And that would give the green light to DeSantis to then say, yeah, it doesn't matter if it's race-based gerrymandering. It's still legal. But you can overplay your hand. And that's where the Republican legislators are really worried. Because Florida is so gerrymandered as it is that already if you create a state where you have more Republicans than Democrats, but not by a huge margin, I mean, you still have more, but you create a congressional district where it's 25-3, that is going to weaken Republican districts. That's going to dilute them where all it takes is a blue wave and you can just take back a ton of those seats. Because right now you have all those safe Republican districts. You make them less safe to get more districts, that could backfire. And in fact, according to the New York Times, in Florida, Republicans will have to defend redrawing maps from just 3 years ago while skirting any explicit partisan aims and not running afoul of protections for minority communities. Now, of course, that's before we get a ruling on the Voting Rights Act. Some legislators privately worry that going too far could water down Republican advantages in some areas and result in losses in what is expected to be a difficult midterm for the party. And the key here is Senator Ben Albritton. He is the Senate president. In Florida, we have a system where you have three people who run the show in Tallahassee. You've got the governor, you got the Senate president, you got the Speaker of the House. Enormous power is within those three people. And if any one of those three-legged stools say no, it doesn't happen. And now you see the Senate president saying this, quote, "Senators should be aware that in prior cycles, significant litigation has followed passage of new maps." He wrote in a memo to his members on Wednesday. This is the person who has to approve of these new maps to get it through. The legal hurdles have Democrats feeling confident that a court challenge in Florida would have at least a chance of success. Quote, "It's so blatantly clear that this is either an extraordinary political gerrymander or going to result in an extraordinary racial gerrymander," said John Bisognano, the president of the National Democratic Redistricting Committee. "The slow approach in Florida underscores the rifts that have come to dominate Republican politics in Tallahassee." Mr. Albritton, the Senate president, has said that he agrees with Mr. DeSantis' plan to redraw the map in a spring special session. That puts him at odds with Daniel Perez, the House Speaker, who has emerged as Mr. DeSantis' chief adversary. Okay, this is another important point, is that in the beginning of DeSantis' term, he had full sway over the legislature. The legislature was scared of him. He was powerful. And in fact, that lasted pretty much for his entire first term and into his second term. But now DeSantis is a lame duck. And after DeSantis lost the presidential race, where he had to drop out early on, where he greatly underperformed, he lost that feeling of invincibility in Tallahassee. What happened is that all of a sudden, Republicans started to show us some backbone in pushing back against DeSantis. And now we actually have a legislature with Danny Perez, the Speaker of the House, who will butt heads with DeSantis, who will not just roll over anymore. And even Ben Albritton, who says he supports DeSantis' aims, even he is saying, as I read to you earlier, that be careful, there's going to be a lot of litigation. It could really mess things up. Don't push too far. So Democrats are not throwing in the towel when it comes to redistricting. Although Florida has been largely forgotten by major Democratic money in recent years, it's seen as a state trending Republican. It does, though, seem like there is some hope. There is a pushback here. It is not automatic that DeSantis is going to get what he wants and get those 5 seats for the Republicans. I know that this is something that Trump is desperate to get because he sees the way that the midterms are heading. He sees the way that the elections last month went, and he sees a very strong prospect of a blue wave. And so it may not even matter if they gerrymander all these districts, but they're trying to lock down every last district by whatever means necessary. And that means this undemocratic, un-American, mid-decade gerrymander. But don't put those 5 seats in Florida in the Republican column yet. And we'll keep following it here on the MeidasTouch Network. I'm Dave Aronberg, aka the Florida Law Man. If you like this video, please like, share, subscribe, and leave a comment below. Also, check out my Substack at Dave Aronberg. Thanks for your support, and I'll see you next time.
Love this video? Support independent media and unlock exclusive content, ad-free videos, and custom emojis by becoming a paid member of our YouTube channel today. You can also gift memberships to others. Let's keep growing together.